Hello, welcome to our Saliva Cast. I am Dr. Deborah Heller. I'm a dentist, a scientist, a university professor, and my mission, my goal is to bring evidence based salivary diagnostics to all dentists around the world. By using this innovation, this saliva test in your clinical practice, you'll be able to have a more precise diagnosis of your patients, provide better care for them, and ultimately improve their health. I invite you, dentists connecting here in SalivaCast, to join us in this mission to bring salivary diagnostics to our dental practice, and this way to bring a more individualized, tailored care to our patients and more health to them all. Well, the topic I chose to talk to you today is becoming more and more relevant, which is the use of e-cigarettes, electronic cigarettes, vapes. So the use of electronic cigarettes and saliva. We see worldwide that more and more of our patients are using electronic cigarettes. In 3 years ago, the number was over 5 million people reported using electronic nicotine delivery systems. Okay, this number increases incrementally, exponentially all over the globe, and it's really something to worry about as dentists because we know this, and the evidence about this is growing and growing, that the use of electronic cigarettes can cause harm to oral health. So this is something that the dentist, us, we need to discuss with our patients. And if you are a patient that you're listening to Saliva Cast, you need to know that this electronic cigarette is potentially harming your oral health. Okay, so when we talk about these electronic cigarettes, we know that many times they have this vaporized flavored liquids known as e-liquids, and these e-liquids, they have various formulations. Some of them have nicotine, glycerol, propylene glycol, tobacco alkaloids, pH modifiers, and flavoring agents. These e-liquids flavors have attracted our younger patients, and we are seeing more and more of teenagers using e-cigarettes, using the vapes, the way we call them. We have an epidemic of adolescent vaping. Over 5 million reported cases worldwide. And the safety of these electronic cigarettes is actually unknown because there's so many different manufacturers, formats, and different individual behaviors of using the vaping that we can actually not define how safe they are. So keep in mind that most probably this is not safe. This is an epidemic of electronic cigarettes, and us dentists, we need to get together and to bring information to our patient that this electronic cigarette has the potential to harm their oral health. Okay? For different reasons, for being exposed to toxic metals, the flavoring additives, also other things that may be inside the vapes can lead to oxidative stress and to inflammatory response. There is evidence already suggesting that vapes can alter the metabolic processes in the salivary gland. So this is where the saliva link starts to connect, induce compositional and functional changes in the oral microbiome because it's changing the oral environment and it's also changing the saliva. So consequently, the oral microbiome will feel this impact. And this can lead to the progression of oral disease and to higher risk of oral diseases such as periodontal diseases. Given the popularity of this vaping behavior, of these electronic cigarettes, it is very, very important, dentists, that you, one, alert your patients, and that second, that you include a saliva test, a saliva evaluation, okay, to the protocol of all your patients, of course, but here, super important to add this to your patient that uses electronic cigarette, okay? Very good. So this is, I tell you, dentist, a public health issue, okay? This is not something that we want to worry solely in our dental practice. We need to worry this as a group. All dentists in the world need to worry about this. In fact, there's a dentist in Brazil that last week created a movement. In Portuguese, it's called Dentists Against Vape. It's actually called Dentistry Against Vapes, okay? So this is very important that we unite, and they bring this also to the English spoken language. So all dentists in the world can join this movement. This movement was launched, and its leader, it's Dr. Paulo Vinicius Soares from Brazil. He created this Dentistry Against Vapes movement, and it's very important, dentists, that we all unite in this movement because the patient needs us. So I want to focus on the impact of the vaping in saliva. And I will start with a systematic review. And for you who is not familiar perhaps with scientific articles or with systematic reviews, this, dentist, is the best article you should look for. This is the best you should focus for. Why? Well, evidence is acquired by groups, right? Scientific evidence, but the clinical decision is made by you, dentists, in your dental practice for each individual. And for us dentists, if we are in our clinical practice every day, there is not enough time or perhaps not enough training to know how to read a scientific article. So the advantage of a systematic review is that the systematic review, it's the highest proof we can have, okay, the highest evidence. The systematic review takes the best of all the articles, all the studies that are available directly to the clinician. So if you want to choose which article to read a systematic review for you, dentists, to have and to make the best evidence-based clinical decision to your patients. So let's open here with me this systematic review. This was published about 1 year ago, and it wants to see the prevalence of xerostomia, of dry mouth, among, look how interesting this is, e-cigarette users and combustible tobacco users. So, and to compare both. And it's a systematic review with a meta-analysis from a group of dentists from China, and they see a higher prevalence of xerostomia, which is a dry mouth feeling. So they see a higher prevalence of xerostomia in patients, healthy patients that make use of electronic cigarettes. This evidence gathered from studies, it was 14 studies that they summarized, showed that the prevalence of xerostomia was high in healthy smoking population. And these findings show us the importance for us dentists to tackle this problem. The fact that smoking affects saliva production, we know this for many years. There's several studies showing how active smokers have higher clinical oral dryness scores, so they have more clinical signs of lower salivary production. There's also lots of evidence showing that smokers have lower saliva flow rates. But now we are starting also to have evidence that our patients that are using electronic cigarettes, these patients, they also have a consequence of this habit in their saliva. So as I told you in the beginning, there is already studies showing that these electronic cigarettes, they may change, cause oxidative stress in the salivary gland. They consequently may affect the feeling of dry mouth, and it may, yes, affect both the composition of saliva and the saliva flow rate. There's also evidence for that. Consequently, it's not a surprise when we read the evidence that these patients using electronic cigarettes, that they also have changes in their oral microbiome and they're more prone to disease. So now I want to focus what you should do, what actually you must do. So it's a fact, there is science behind it. Electronic cigarettes are harming our patients' oral health and are affecting their saliva, which is the biggest protection shield. It's our main protection of the oral cavity. So we want to bring saliva testing to these patients because we want to do the saliva test of the patient that is using electronic cigarettes. So this way you can have a better communication with this patient. So this way you communicate with this patient and you show them in your clinical office, they're sitting in the dental chair, and you show them how this electronic cigarette is altering their saliva. And you tell them how their saliva was supposed to protect them from oral diseases. And now they're less protected. So I know changing of habits is very hard, and it's really hard that we convince a patient to stop using e-cigarettes, but we must try. It's our role as health professionals. And you know what? To do the saliva test in your clinical practice will help us to achieve this goal because we'll show them the results of this test on site in real time to them. We'll show them, look, this is your saliva. This test was altered. It could be, yes, because of using the vape, also other reasons, systemic disease, autoimmune disease, we'll investigate that as well. But this way, you have here a way to better communicate with your patients. So here you have one more reason to bring the saliva test to your daily clinical practice. So we end. Which test to bring? Start with saliva flow rate. Actually, start before that. Start with the xerostomia inventory. Ask the patient in the right way if they feel dry mouth. Use the xerostomia inventory, 11 questions. Ask them about their dry mouth feeling. After, oh, Salva, dear, I miss you guys too. I hear there was a commercial convention right there. I wish I was there with you guys, just to say hello. Big kiss to all of you. That's so nice. Very nice. That's the very, very special people from Liechtenstein. Very nice. Very good. So what we are going to do, we are going to, number one, xerostomia inventory to ask about dry mouth feeling. If you're a patient and you're listening to this, ask your dentist to do this test on you, the xerostomia inventory. Then we'll do the clinical oral dryness score, okay? We'll do this to look for clinical signs of dry mouth. And then we go to the saliva testing to the saliva function test. We'll do saliva flow rate, we'll do saliva pH, we'll do salivary viscoelasticity, we do it all. And we show the results to the patients. And we communicate with the patients in a more evidence-based but accessible way, because the patient can see. And that's one of the biggest advantages of saliva testing. We can show the result. The patient can see, it's visual. So it's really easy to communicate with the patient. And the patient must know that this vaping is harming their oral health, that this vaping is affecting their salivary function, that this vaping is affecting the saliva and their mucosa is also becoming with more red, more dry. The vape liquid, listen to this, can present carcinogenic and cytotoxic components in its composition. We dentists, we must alert our patients. And it's altering their saliva. So it's keeping them less protecting. It's harming them and it's keeping them less protecting. We must alert. That's why I invite you to join us. This started in Brazil already. I told you, Dr. Paulo Vinicius Soares from Brazil. He launched this movement. It's called Dentistry Against Vapes. I ask you to join us today. As always, all the scientific papers I mentioned, I put in the description of SalivaCast. I sure invite you to join me as well on YouTube, Deborah Heller on YouTube, my YouTube channel. I have also an Instagram profile in English. My new Instagram profile in English is Dr. Deborah Heller, but I do have an older and with 30,000+ followers profile. The name is in Portuguese, but I also share content in English, which is A Dentista Cientista, which is the dental scientist in Portuguese. So I invite you to connect. I invite you to bring saliva tests to your clinical practice, and this way to bring more health to all your patients. For that, you can always count on me. A pleasure to see so many dentists joining us live, and I hope you are all enjoying SalivaCast. Please let me know if you're enjoying it, what you want to see here next. Have a great week ahead, everyone.